Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's a football podcast. We've got football news, football predictions, football reviews. We're going to go through last week's games. All the football you could want, all in one place. Before we start, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave us a review. Share it with your friends. All of that good stuff. Right, let's start talking football, baby. Here we go. This is CookieCast, the football podcast.
Recording in progress.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, she's back. And not only is she back, we're back. We're back to bring you more football than you'll ever care to have in your lives. If that football is from a Northeast, Midlands or Humberside persuasion, I, of course, cannot do this alone. I am joined by Hull's very own Mr. Stuart Woodmansey. How are you this week, sir?
Oh, distinctly average.
Distinctly average, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first. It is the way to be. I'm also joined by Nottingham's finest, Mr. Matthew Moore. How are you, sir?
Good. Distracted.
Distracted indeed. This may come up later on in the podcast, but we'll get to that as we need to. And of course, rounding out the successful quartet is the leader, the Don, the I was going to say grandpappy, but that's definitely not the thing. The Godfather is the actual word I was looking for of the CookieCast podcast network. It is Mr. Andrew Cook. How are you, sir?
I am, yes.
He is, yes. Sporting a lovely, for those of you not watching on YouTube, he is sporting a lovely yellow and black hoodie, which is very striking. And from a football perspective, has elements of Watford FC from a few seasons ago. Or as Stu said earlier, a Borussia Dortmund shirt, which I'm pretty sure is up there with one of the hipsters' choices of shirts. So he's ticking all the boxes tonight, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you not watching on YouTube, what an excuse to go over to YouTube to watch and see what we're talking about. So, another week, another dollar, another day, another time. Our first game of week 36 saw Liverpool take on Nottingham Forest. This one was a bit tastier than it potentially showed in the first half, I dare say, Mr. Moore.
Definitely. I think, the first half was a bit drab, I think. And then kind of sprung into life in the second half in about 25 minutes. So early on in the second half, Diego Jota opened the Liverpool scoring. I think most people thought that would be it. The floodgates would open, but oh no! Morgan Gibbs-White comes back and equalises for Forest. Or was it Nico Williams? I can't remember. Oh, there was a Forest equaliser. I can't remember which way around it was. Nico Williams first. I've written it down wrong. Nico Williams equalises, only to do what Forest do best, which is give the goal straight back. We had about 10 minutes of no further goals. Until Morgan's Gibbs-White did equalise with the second Forest goal, only for Mohamed Salah to pop up and score a third for Liverpool. I think from that though, reading the reports and watching things, it was like a really good Forest team performance. I mean, they had 18% of the possession and very little of that, but it did, but I think they put in a real shift. They really kind of pressured Liverpool. Yeah, they're not as good as perhaps as they have been, but they pressured them. And I think had chances towards the end of the game to possibly get that equaliser. So a moral victory, which doesn't mean anything, but hopefully could lay the kind of foundations for a bit of a push to stay up this season. So yeah, 3-2 loss, but when we crack in another 2 goals to take up our tally to 7 away from home this season, we can bin that fucking stat off now. People rifle away at us, so we can find another one for people to talk about. So yeah, 3-2 Liverpool win. But yeah, kind of positives to take away, I think.
Absolutely, and like you say, the stick that particular team will be beaten with as the lowest away goal scorers. I don't know if that's still the case.
Probably.
7, probably still the lowest, but at least they've managed to start scoring away from home, which is positive towards the end of the season. Fingers crossed the next time they play away from home, they can get a couple more. So, predictions-wise, we had positive to an extent selections from both Mr. Cook and Mr. Mo this week. Both of them going for 1-1 draws. Sadly for Mr. Cook, he did pick Diaz and Awoniyi to score for Forest, so doesn't get any points. Matt had agreed and also picked Awoniyi to score for Forest, but had picked Salah to score for Liverpool, so does get himself a bonus point there. Both myself and Stu had gone with the more realistic Liverpool home win, both of us going for 4-0 scorelines. I had Salah to score twice, Gakpo and Firmino for the others. Stu had Salah, Gakpo to score twice, and Van Dijk. So we both just get 1 bonus point for that particular goal, that particular game there. So for this week's first game, 2 points for myself, 2 points for Stu, just a single point for Matt, and the yet to get up a mark. Our second game of the week takes us over to Mr. Woodmansey's team, where Hull City took on Watford, which technically, obviously, Andy knew and wore the kit from a couple of seasons ago for tonight's podcast. It's all making sense, ladies and gentlemen. So, Hull City versus Watford. How did this one pan out in the end, Mr. W?
I'm happy to report that it was a 1-0 Hull win, which was completely out of the realms of the possibilities of my entire predictory skills. So it was a 25-minute penalty. Tufan scored the goal. Sky had described Hull as strong and resolute and deserved to win. I did have to double check just to make sure I was reading the right match report. Seri apparently dominated the game. Harry Vaughan made his home debut, and he was the guy that was fouled in the box as well after a clever back heel. He tried to turn, like sort of almost like reverse Cruyff turned, and just got absolutely wiped out. It was definitely a penalty, and then Tufan managed to smash it in the bottom left. Watford improved in the second half, but just couldn't score. They, however, probably should have had a penalty on the 63rd minute when, despite the fact that he dominated the midfield, Seri decided to take up basketball for a second, but thankfully that was missed by the referee. Just to give you an idea as to how exciting this game could potentially have been, there were 3 shots on target for the whole game. 2 of them were Watford, and the one that Hull had was the penalty. So I don't exactly think it'll go down as a thriller, but 3 points on the board for Hull and a big FU to Watford's potential playoff hopes. But yeah, that's about it.
Yes, this result, coupled with a couple of other results over the course of the weekend, did in fact leave Watford at 6 points adrift of the playoff places, with just 6 points to play for, so they can find themselves pretty much out of contention for the playoffs as soon as this Friday, potentially, I believe, if the results go the way that they potentially could. From a predictions perspective, Stu was the least optimistic of all of us and had gone for a 2-0 Watford win.
Yeah, but on paper, that Watford side should be wiping the floor with half the teams in this division. And for whatever reason, they've picked the last 4 weeks to just go, nah, I don't fancy that.
Well, I don't change your manager. That's what they need. They definitely have definitely, the solution.
Chris Wilder has proven that he can't be trusted with a team twice this season, and he needs to be put in his place. So,
not sick.
We know what happens, ladies and gentlemen. Normally, what happens is on the podcast we record, and then some breaking news happens literally the second we put down the microphones and whatnot. So keep your eyes peeled on the social medias. But yeah, look within the next sort of 25 minutes. And Chris Wilder will no longer be the manager of Watford. I can grimly guarantee.
Based on Watford's track record, how many games have you got left this season?
2.
Still time for at least another 2 managers then yet, surely.
Oh, 100%. So yes, Mr. Woodmansey, not optimistic, no points for him. I had gone for a 1-1 draw on this one. Had Ken Semmer to score for Watford, Tufan to score for Hull. So I managed to get myself a bonus point there for the goal scorer. Positivity was the order of the day for Mr. Matt Moore and Mr. Andrew Cook. Matt had gone 2-1 with Syed Manesh and Tufan to score for Hull, with Sarr scoring for Watford, so gets himself 2 points for that particular result there. Mr. Cook, however, he knew what was going to happen. 1-0 Hull City, 2 points for him there. Sadly, he didn't get the goal scorer. He'd gone for Longman to score, so just sticks with the 2 points. So after three games, I've jumped ahead, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies. After 2 games, I have 3 points. Matt has 3 points. 2 points apiece for Mr. Woodmansey and Mr. Cook. Our third game of the week saw my boys travel down to Luton to take on Luton Town. This was 3rd versus 4th in the league. This is the game where anything... if the game was drawn, Sheffield United were pretty much promoted. So let's see how it panned out, shall we? Fairly slow starting in the first half, and then the ball worked its way out to the right hand side for Matt Crooks I should say, quite a lot of changes to the Middlesbrough side that had played against Hull the week before. I think the main idea behind that was both of these teams are fully ensconced in the playoffs. Both guaranteed a playoff place at worst. And I think the idea was, let's not show our hand too early. If we see them again in the playoffs, we might want to keep something in reserve that they've not seen before, so they can, catch them off guard, so to speak. So a lot of changes. No Hackney in the midfield, no Tuber up front. A couple of other players missing through injury. Fours out injured. Ramsey out injured. A couple more. Couple of players playing out of position. Johnny House was playing at centre half for this one. Strange choice. But Middlesbrough actually took the lead in the first half. The ball worked out to the right hand side for Matt Crooks, who played a lofted ball over the top for Cameron Archer to run onto. The goalkeeper for Luton came out and tried to clear, but Archer just got nicked in there before him. Took the ball around him and just rolled it into the empty net for a 1-0 lead at half time. Middlesbrough didn't start the second half too well, unfortunately. 4 minutes in, there was a corner clipped in for Lockyer to steal away and head into the back of the net. Not controversial in the goal, but there was a sort of off the ball. Lockyer had kind of manoeuvred Dyke steal out of the way. Probably wasn't enough to sort of be given as a foul, but he wasn't able to make a challenge because he was down. But then the true controversy came with Luton's second goal of the evening, where a ball had been played through, and Carlton Morris got onto the end of it, touched the ball past the goalkeeper, and then appeared to have been brought down in the box. Replays showed that the contact, if any, was incredibly minimal from Zach Steffen, and Mr. Morris had, shall we say, taken a tumble of great proportions with very, very little contact made in that particular sense. He picked himself up, dusted himself down, slotted over the penalty, and then decided to give it large to the Middlesbrough fans and Middlesbrough players in his celebrations. So not only did he cheat for the penalty, he then rubbed it in by being a total twat and celebrating it right in their face. Unfortunately, that's how the game finished. 2-1 to Luton. So Middlesbrough officially now out of the automatic the automatic promotion race. There is another game going on as we speak for Sheffield United, where I believe they were 1-0 up. They are now 2-0 up. So Sheffield United are literally on the cusp of promotion back to the Premier Division. That one will finish in the next couple of minutes, so we'll cover that when it comes to fruition. Luton get the win. Pretty much seals them for third place. Borough now 4 points behind them with 2 games left to go. Borough got fourth place sewn up pretty much. So the playoffs is now 2 from, I think, is anything up to 6 places for the last 2 to get in. Predictions wise for this one, Andy was the most optimistic. He'd gone for a 2-0 Middlesbrough win with Akpom and Archer to score, so gets himself a point for the goal scorer. The rest of us had all gone for draws. Stuart and Matt have both gone for 1-1 draws. Stu with Campbell and Akpom to score the goals. Matt with Adebayo and Akpom to score the goals. Obviously, Akpom never made it onto the pitch, so sadly he was never going to score. I'd gone for a 2-2 draw in this one. I had a point there. I also had 4s and 3 games down. 5 points for myself. 3 points apiece for Mr. Cook and Mr. Moore. Mr. Woodmansey bringing up the rear with just the 2 points. We have 1 game left from week 36 to go through. But before we go through that, we are just going to take a slight moment to pause, reflect, recharge the batteries, and we'll be right back in just a few moments to bring you the details of Nottingham Forest versus Brighton and Hove Albion. Don't touch that dial, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back.
Recording in progress.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. We told you, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. And sure enough, here we are. So, just the 1 game to finish off for week 36. And it may or may not have just been completed within the last few moments. And it was indeed Nottingham Forest versus Brighton and Hove Albion. Could Nottingham Forest capitalise on those precious 2, yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, 2 goals they'd scored away from home, and follow it up with a win against Brighton and Hove Albion, a very much needed win? Could they do it, Mr. Moore?
Well, considering they were at home, where it's a bit more success at home, yes, they could. Started off in kind of typical Forest style, get a penalty, miss it. So look, here's a new fact for you folks. Forest have had 6 penalties this season. They've missed 3 of them. I mean, it also means they've scored 3 of them. Wait out for that tasty little stat as Forest either miss or score more penalties as we go through the season, being as we put the away goal thing to bed. Probably not, because it'll just be trotted out, no doubt, soon anyway. John missed a penalty. I've not managed to catch the highlights yet. Apparently a bad penalty, but also good save from the keeper as well. Like an easy height to save, I think was the quote from Danny Mills on Soccer Special.
It was very much your stereotypical middle of the goal, not in the corner.
Yeah. So you're hoping that the keeper goes the wrong way, and you look awesome as you knock it down the middle of the other side, and then he doesn't. Of course, Forest missing the penalty, that never comes to bite you on the arse straight away, does it? Oh no, yeah, it did, because Brighton then took the lead just before, 7 minutes before half time with Uyanate, I want to say, or
I believe it is pronounced Buenanote.
Well, I knew I was butchering it because he's an 18-year-old Argentinian, isn't he? So.
Oh yes, that stat got brought out in the commentary on the game I listened to. The first time in Premier League history that two teenage South Americans have been included in the same starting lineup. Again, that is not a stat.
This is probably an argument for another podcast, on this podcast another time. The stats thing is getting ridiculous. It's NFL, NBA levels of stats, and they're just more and more ridiculous as we go along. It's, oh look, two players who are young are playing on the same team in a really international league. How on earth did that happen? But kind of, again, you'd expect the kind of floodgates to open. Brighton, I think I saw a stat this season, was they take the most shots on goal in the league, and Forest like to let teams have shots on goal, so it was kind of like the worst kind of scenario. But Forest, just before half time, managed to get an equaliser through a deflected cross. I think it was going to be attributed to several different people, possibly the goalkeeper steal. I think it's been put down to Gross at the moment. I think once again, Brighton, as Forest have done all season, they let the other team dominate the ball. It's a bit unfair in some ways because Brighton dominate the ball anyway. It's the way that they play. I think there was one stage where they'd already, like in the first half, I think they'd said that they had 125 more passes than Forest did by the half time. But it's sometimes it's that little bit ticky tacker kind of things. Going into the second half, I think Brighton were dominating the play, but then on the 69th minute, Danilo popped up and scored Forest's second. I think I might have got, I don't know if I've got this out of order again, but then the game was delayed for a while due to a serious injury to Nico Williams. He's been stretchered off, like neck brace and all that kind of thing, and there's been no replays or anything. So, serious injury. I think people have mentioned concussion. He obviously got a nasty concussion at the World Cup, which kept him out from the latter stages of the World Cup, or like when as Wales got knocked out. And then when he came back to Forest, it kept him out for a bit. So that sounds like it might be done for the season if it's a nasty concussion. But as added time kind of put on there, Morgan Gibbs-White stepped up and scored a penalty to make it 3-1 to Forest. But just to make sure that everybody was firmly kind of on the edge of their seats, I think there was a disallowed Brighton goal for offside with a bit of VAR tension to be added to it. But luckily, that was counted as offside, and Forest finish 3-1 winners and out of the relegation zone for the first time in a couple of months. We weren't back in. Sorry, we weren't back in at the weekend, and now we're back out again. So we're
lovely stuff. Certainly from a Nottingham Forest supporters perspective, anyway. From a predictions perspective on the podcast, myself and Mr. Woodmansey had gone for a 1-1 draw on this one. I had taken Johnson to score for Forest and MacAllister to score for Brighton, as it's definitely not McAllister, as there are two separate words on the back of his shirt. Stuart gone for Owonyi and Caicedo to score. So sadly,
just going to throw it out there that it also says Brereton Diaz on the back of somebody else's shirt, but we don't tug at that string, do we, Paul?
Nah, because it's not a case of MacAllister just decided to add the Alister at some point during the course.
It could still be Alistair.
All right. It's Alexis MacAllister then. It's just not McAllister, is it? Because that's not how that works.
How quickly you say things. Like,
well, I'm choosing to not say it that fast then. Anyway, Stuart had gone for a Wonyi and Caicedo, and for those of you watching the podcast, when Matt had given the information about Nico Williams and his concussion, and the fact that Wales got knocked out of the World Cup, I believe that Mr. Woodmansey had to fight all the air to say, so they got knocked out twice then. Blah, 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 etc., etc. So no points for me or for Stu for that game. Matt and Andy, though, optimistic, went for the home win. Point apiece. Andy had gone 1-0 with Johnson to score, so if he'd have only just scored that penalty that he had in the first half, points galore for Mr. Cook. Sadly, just a 1 point there for the win. Matt had gone 2-1 with Johnson and Yates to score for Forest and Mitoma to score for Brighton. So again, if only that penalty had gone in, they'd have had an extra bonus point themselves. So just the 1 point for each of them for that last game. So, for the week, Stu, sadly, just the 2 points. Matt and Andy both on 4 points, but taking the win with 5 points for the week. It is myself. Happy days, lovely stuff, back in the win column. Jobs are good. We move to a new week and new predictions. And even though it's coming towards the end of the season, we thought we'd try something a little different. A little tester, just to see how it goes down. And then we'll start the real new segment at the start of next season. So, I have tasked Mr. Cook with I've tasked him with the task, strangely enough, of selecting a game of the week for himself. This week, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but you have chosen Millwall as your team of the week. Is this correct?
This is correct. I almost immediately regretted my decision, but as I said to you, gentlemen, don't have the knowledge to know why, so just had to roll with it in the end.
Listen, there are no right or wrong picks.
That's not true. That's not.
It was merely a case of let's see if we can just sort of increase the input that Mr. Cook has in the podcast, as he doesn't really have a team as such in the podcast. So let's sort of manufacture him a team. Now, this will become more apparent when we come into next season's show, and obviously we'll cover that at the start of next season. But just as a sort of a tester for the last couple of weeks of this season, we're going to roll with Andy picking a game. We'll then all pick a prediction in the same way that we do for our teams, and obviously those points will count towards the overall points for the week. So, technically, as this would count as Andy's team, he will give his prediction last. So I'll jump in. So it's Blackpool versus Millwall. Now this game takes place on Friday and is live on Sky Sports. So for those of you who have access to Sky Sports, you'll be able to watch along. Just as a little bit of a background for this one, I did a little bit of a look into the sort of the form of the two teams. Blackpool have 2 wins in their last 5 games. They are second bottom in the division, however. Millwall have 1 win in the last 5 games, and I believe they are either 7th or 8th in the division.
They're 7th. They need a win to get into the playoffs.
Yes, so they're very much on the cusp of the playoff race, and very much need the win to get back into the playoffs. They're currently level on points with both Blackburn and Sunderland, but are outside of the playoffs on goal difference. So Millwall kind of need the win in this one to get back in the playoffs. Blackpool need the win to avoid relegation. So I've gone for a 1-1 draw that doesn't really help any of the teams. I've gone for Yates to score for Blackpool and Bradshaw to score for Millwall. Stu, what have you got down for this one?
Very much the same. Obviously, Millwall lost to Wigan in their last game. So I'm not expecting a whole host of of anything, to be honest. But as we've been through before, once you've had a bit of a beating, facing that defence. So, unfortunately for Mr. Cook, on the debut of his team of the week, I have gone for a 0-0 draw.
0-0 draw means he doesn't have to pick a goal scorer. That is truly phenomenal picking. It's lovely. Matt, what have you got for in this one?
I dislike Millwall. I very much dislike Gary Rowett. He is insert word after there because he is a mega one of those. So I've gone for a 1-0 Blackpool win with Yates scoring.
For those of you who don't know,
just to get to this point, please don't words in the comment because we don't want to get the video banned. Just saying.
For those of you who don't know too much about Gary Rowett's career, and shame on you for not doing your research, there's a distinct team who play in white, who don't play too far from Nottingham, that he may or may not have played for, that may or may not have tainted Mr. Mo's feelings towards Mr. Rowett.
It's not the Derby connection, it's just a massive bell end.
Whoa.
Listen, for all intents and purposes, for this week, that's Andy's team's manager you're talking about there.
Well, I'll inform him that his manager, the manager of his team for this week, is a massive bell end.
Right, so they're officially your team for the week, Mr. Cook. Give us how you think your boys will get on.
So, the rundown that you gave at the start of this had absolutely no bearings on exactly how I went about picking this game. But I had to give it to my team with a 2-0 win for the Millwall people. I agree that Bradshaw will be scoring one of those 2 goals, but then I saw a name that I felt like I recognised. And I went, if you're not picking Duncan Watmore, what are you doing wrong with your life?
It's a lovely, lovely thought. And do you know what he's done, ladies and gentlemen? He's taken the old boy rule and he's applied it to his team. And it's just a beautiful sight to see.
I'm
It's
disappointed
lovely.
because I thought it was going to be the Honey Man.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, it was also an option, but Watmore was more recently involved with the podcast teams because he was only sold in January. So I think he takes it over Mr. Honeyman, sadly. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. First game of the week, Blackpool versus Millwall in the books. Now, depending on the result on this one, may determine how Andy picks his team for next week. But we'll cover that on next week's show. So tune back in and we'll see how that one goes. Our next game of the week sees Brentford take on Nottingham Forest. Mr. Mo's team, he will go last. So I'm gonna go to Andy for his prediction on this particular game.
It's a 1-0 Forest win. No surprises when I'm picking that goal. It's absolutely Johnson.
1-0 away win.
I feel very much like I'm owed a Johnson goal somewhere. I feel like somebody needs to slot one in for me. So, yeah. Johnson till the end of the season. Who's with me?
I'm guessing there's a few thousand Forest fans who are hoping they can give him one as well. So
Just take that clip before I'm Oda Johnson and we'll just cut it there and then...
New podcast jingle.
What have I done?
Stu, what have you got for this one?
Well, normally, after Brentford have just beaten Chelsea, I will be thinking, ooh, but this is Chelsea under Frank Lampard, not Chelsea when they were good. So I've gone slightly more optimistic, but I've gone for a 1-1 draw. I also have got Johnson out of retirement to score a goal. And Kinder Bueno or Mbuemo or something to that ilk for Brentford. I have no idea how to pronounce it, so I will apologise.
Every time I tune into Match of the Day, I swear they change the pronunciation of his name. Because sometimes it's Mbuemo, and then sometimes people just call him Burma, or Buma, or Boomer, or Burma.
Is it because whoever has been watching him play has a bit of a thing for him, and they're like, Buemo?
Quite possibly. I am in agreement with Mr. Woodmansey. I too have gone for a 1-1 draw on this one. I've gone for Tony to score for Brentford and Gibbs White to score for Nottingham Forest. Go on, Matt. What have you picked for your boys?
Worryingly, I've kind of done a bit of a mishmash of a lot of people's ones there. I've gone for a 1-1 draw with Ivan Toney to score for Brentford and Brennan Johnson to score for Forest.
Very nice.
It is a kind of, they've beaten Chelsea, but it's Chelsea under Frank Lampard with God knows what going on. Maybe there'll still be a little bit of a come down, considering they've beaten a local rival that they like to eat. But we'll see, and maybe Forest have got a little bit of, dare I say, momentum going. Yeah,
and they don't seem in particularly good form. I know they've just beaten Chelsea tonight, but like you say, Chelsea, terrible form. But Brentford haven't had up until tonight, I don't think they've won in the last 6. So, potentially there for the taking, shall we say. Our second to last game of the week takes us over to Mr. Woodmansey's boys, where Hull City take on Swansea City. His team, he will go last. I'll dive in here. I've gone for a 2-2 draw on this one. Got Tufan and Traore to score for Hull. Pirro and Patterson to score for Swansea. Didn't even realise that. I've sort of nicely sort of balanced it up. I've gone for 2 T's and 2 P's to score. I like it. Andy, what have you got for this one?
So in a similar vein, I've gone with a 1-1 draw. I've got Longman, because as always, struggling to find anybody who's going to be banging in goals at Hull. And I tried my best and went with Cullen. Right up until somebody tells me that either he doesn't play there anymore, he's never played there, or he's been injured for 14 years.
Scored in Swansea's last game, I believe. So I think he is a more than acceptable pick for a goal scorer. Matt, what have you got for this one?
I've also gone for a 1-1 draw. This has end of the season, kickabout, kind of written all over it.
Well, technically, Swansea can still make the playoffs.
Yeah,
it's got outside shot, but
it's got a feeling of an end of season kickabout about it. I've gone Traore for Hull and Pirro for Swansea.
So, Matt thinks it's going to be an end of season kickabout. Does Stu agree?
Well, it's the last home game of the season. They've done another offer on the tickets to get a bumper crowd. So we're going to lose 2-0. So I've got Pirro and Kundal.
Sorry, come again?
Kundal.
I'm very sorry to hear that, but could you give us your goal scorer prediction, please? Kundal?
Yeah.
I don't even know what that name is.
Either I can't read my own writing or I've bossed them up then, but I'm pretty sure that was a name that was in the starting lineup not so long ago.
He's right there, Luke Kundal. I'll take it back, I do apologise. Pirro and Kundal. Marvellous. 3 games down, 1 game to go. The eagle-eyed amongst you will know that that's means one team. That is my team. It's the Borough Boys, ladies and gentlemen. They travel to Rotherham on Bank Holiday Monday Now, as discussed, in the Luton game, several changes were made. They lost, therefore they cannot get automatic promotion. By the time this game rolls around, there may even be a potential that they can't even get as high as third. So they would literally be locked into fourth place and unable to go up or down from that position. So, I envisage lots and lots of changes here. Don't risk the players that you need for the playoff push. So I would expect to see no Tuber again, although maybe give him half an hour at the end of the game just to sort of keep him ticking over. I mean, this could all be bollocks. Don't take what I'm saying as read. It's just a sort of a personal thought process more than anything else. So, I was about to give my prediction and then remembered, I don't give my prediction first, I give my prediction last. So, let's go to Matt for his prediction first.
I'd gone with a similar vibe as what you were talking about there. It's kind of rest some players, make sure you don't get injured, ready for the playoffs. Rotherham are in a relegation battle. So I've gone 2-1 Rotherham win.
Goal scorers?
Hugill and Ugbene.
Chidozie Ogbene, yeah.
And then 4s for your good self.
I'll let you pick again because I'm pretty sure he's injured. Can't find it anywhere on the website, but when Carrick was asked in one of his pre or post match pressers during the week, he said it was looking doubtful for some of the injured players, and he definitely falls into that category.
Yeah. Does somebody else want to predict for a minute, and then?
Yeah, I wouldn't. For anyone else who might have them in there, I wouldn't be picking 4s or Ramsey.
Well,
I'd steer clear of those two. Anyone else that sort of plays in the front line, you probably.
No, I meant, does anybody else want to do their prediction while I scramble?
Oh,
out?
I see what you mean. Yeah. Stu?
Firstly, need to get on record how I think that whole thing about not playing players is absolute bullshit. If anything has been taught in the years gone by, it's that you need some momentum going into the playoffs. Millwall will tell you that right now, as we have alluded to earlier on. But I understand not playing them for the full game, but not giving them any game time is just absolute.
No,
bullshit.
I agree, and like I say, obviously Tuber didn't play any part against Luton, so I would expect to see him at some point in this game, just maybe not from the start.
I actually watched that game, and that just annoyed me. Not even, I'm not a Middlesbrough fan. Why take him? Take one of the young lads for a bit of an experience or whatever. Just stupid, absolute stupid. But based on what I saw against Luton, I think that they've probably still got enough to put a team like Rotherham away. But I have got a Rotherham 1, Middlesbrough 2 scoreline, so the opposite to Matt.
Mm-hmm. Goal scorers?
Not the opposite to Matt. I've gone Ogbene for Rotherham. And just purely based on the lineup from the other night, I've gone for Crooks and Barlaser, or Barlasser, or, again, whichever pronunciation the commentary team were going with that particular day.
Yep, he's another one who gets the old treatment of they can't really work out what his name is, so they just go with whatever they're thinking at the time. Have you got a goal scorer yet, Matt? Or
yeah, being as he's absolutely screwed me over for the rest of the season, Muniz Carvalho. I might as well just get one last kick in the balls for him prediction-wise.
that name might crop up later in the podcast. Andy, what have you got for this one?
2-0 Borough win. And I've gone. I know the whole rest this player, rest that player, but I can't not pick the dream team of Archer and Schuber to get those 2 goals.
Yeah, to be honest, like I said, won't be surprised. I imagine that they'll play some part in the game. Obviously, now that you can make 5 subs as well, wouldn't surprise me if he gives them the last half an hour, or starts them, takes them off at half time, depending on how the game's gone. I have gone for a 3-0 Middlesbrough win. Like Stu said, I think they'll probably have too much for Rotherham. I've been burnt with this in the past, though, thinking that if they were full strength, they'd have too much. I've gone for a lot of changes, though. I've also gone for Muniz to score, as I believe he'll probably start up front. Gone for Bowler to get a goal, as he started, for some reason, at left wing against Luton. And I've gone for Jones to score as well. Back in the fold, back in the team. Obviously made 2 assists against Hull. And I think he'll want to get more minutes into him in time for the playoffs, so he's there as an option if Force isn't able to play. That, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to an end. The only thing that I've got left to say is that it was the EFL Awards this week. Middlesbrough had a player in each of the 2 categories for Player of the Season and Young Player of the Season, and they had the manager in the Manager of the Season category. Sadly, they only took home 1 of those awards. It wasn't the manager, that went to Vincent Kompany. It wasn't the young player, that went to Alex Scott of Bristol City. So it was indeed Chuba Akpom as the Championship Player of the Season. So very well done to Mr. Akpom. It's his most successful season from a goal scorer perspective. His previous best in the league was 5. And he's obviously smashed that this season with 28 in the league. So fingers crossed he does play some part in the last 2 games of the season and can get himself to the 30-goal mark for the season. That was about it. That was about all I had, really, as additional. I don't know if you wanted to bring anything up, Stu, or if it was to basically bring up that.
Two things. Random Hull news of the week. We're getting the pitch relayed, apparently, and, well, sometime in May or June, which is delightful for me because we'll get a brand new pitch to come back to for next season, and it also means that Hull FC have to fuck off out of the stadium for a little bit of rugby league season. So, but the second bit is more widespread, and not only do the Yellow Awards take place, but also 442 have released their top 50 EFL players. And we have to give huge congratulations to Podcast Don, Mr. Andy Cook, for sneaking in at number 49, 50, especially after smashing that goal in the cup against Hull earlier this season in his playing career. But no, a little bit closer to home. Oscar Estepinian was in at 32, and Pippin, son of legend, Josh Windass, he was in at 33. The aforementioned Barlasa was 22, which was quite good, but clearly not as good as Akpom, who not only took away the award for Player of the Season, but got number 2 in a top 50 place for the EFL, only being back to Gyökeres, which I thought was a bit of an interesting choice. But yeah, so some of our players getting recognised all over the shop, to quote a local phrase.
Very nice indeed. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another week done and dusted, in the books. Lovely job. Thank you to these 3 wonderful gentlemen for joining me once again, taking you through the trials and tribulations of our teams, and for at least 1 week anyway, Millwall join us again next week to see if Millwall make it into the podcast for a 2nd week running. All will be revealed, don't worry. But yes, thank you all once again for joining us, tuning in and listening to some football nonsense for some nonsensy people, I suppose. But that's just it for this week. We'll be back again next week, where we're going to do it all over again. So join us in around 7 days. But for now, tatty bye. See you later.
There we go. What do you think to that? Another week of games gone. Another week of games to look forward to. Season's kind of feeling like it's starting to draw to a close at this point. Who will go up? Who will go down? Before you go, please consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave us a review. Share the podcast around. Check out the website, thecookiecast.com. Over there you can get in touch with us at the click of a button. Right, that's it for this one. Tune in next week for more games. Until then, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to these grumpy old men talk about football. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe.